Yeah.
Did the Prophet ﷺ recite Surah Al and Ghashiyah in most?
Yes, it is correct to say that I mean, obviously we have other surahs as well, but they are definitely the exception. And it is allowed, by the way, to recite anything. However, the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ al-dawam, yani, to most of the time, is al-a'la and al-ghashiyah. Again, fitting the same theme of qiyamah. You know, there are some basic things, yeah. You know, people try to get clever because, as I said, from a dunya point of view, it makes you look clever. That's why we try to do clever things, like saying statements that other people have, you know, the things that I said about popularity, 5 things, yeah? These are not relevant for the khutbah. For the khutbah, it's about being plain Jane, and plain Jane is where all the blessings are. So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants people to focus on is the Quran and allow it to do all the work. So quoting more Quran in the khutbah, right, and very little commentary is a more blessed khutbah than the vast majority that will ever be said. Quoting Al-A'la and Ghashiyah are reproducing the same objective of using key verses that have big impact. Right? There's a reason why it's not Surah An-Nisa and Surah Al-Ma'idah. There's a reason why it's not 5 verses from Nisa and 5 from Ma'idah. There's a logic behind the khutbah. The reason Al-A'la and Ghashiyah is not just because of its length, but because of the entirety of its message in such a short space. And the fact that when Allah wants to remind people, He keeps it simple. He reminds them of death, reminds them of accountability and punishment, and reward and Jannah. Why would we want to say, everybody does that, or everybody's heard that, or whatever? No. That's why the khutbah cannot be played in the same rules as a talk. It would be completely unacceptable for me to give 5 talks. Even that's acceptable these days. You got people who will do conferences on 2 days. They do the same talk in both places. You got some people who become known for a talk and they go around the different places that give the same talk. That blows my mind, by the way. That tells me everything that I need to know about that person as a speaker or whatnot. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. So the khutbah, however, breaks that rule. The khutbah, stick to the golden principles of as much Quran as possible quoted in the khutbah, to start by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I want you to know that there is a special blessing in praising Allah. You know, when you praise Allah and you use His names, Al-Malik, Al-Quddus, at the beginning, and you remind the people who are hearing Allah being described as who He is, right? That has a or it should, and we need to trust in it, have a trust in its powerful impact upon Allah being described in a way that they are not. So when you hear Allah being described as the infinite, that reminds you that you are the finite, that when He is the great, you are the nothing. And you hear this and you're reminded, without having to go into lots of detail and then commentary and so on and so forth. We've got to trust in that power, that simplicity. But as I said, we immediately go into talk mode. And the talk circuit or the speaking circuit is an incredibly competitive one that's built upon those 5 principles before, where you have to be unique and you got to be funny and you got to be different and you got to have game and you got to come with new information, otherwise people are not interested and they'll turn to another speaker and whatever. Khutbah doesn't play by those rules. But it's very difficult for you to program yourself out of that. Yeah. There is no sunnah authentic set statement. The basic principle is the hamd, okay, right, to praise Allah, and the best way of doing that is the khutbah al-haja, right, with the ayat as well, okay, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha, so on and so forth. But you can cut down, not have those ayat, focus on that and spend that time on other ayat in the khutbah. This works as well. And you can end by saying, I appreciate, completely. Say, Jazakumullah khair for listening. We're going to establish the prayer now. You don't have to end with a dua. You don't have to, there's no basis for that. And if you made a dua, you could make it in English. And if you made a dua, you can do it in Arabic. And you can say, and I send peace and blessings on the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Let's establish the prayer. And by the way, establish the prayer as a statement also, there's no sunnah in saying that. A lot of people think that you've got to say, wa aqim as-salah. There's no basis for that either. But it's done to make it clear to the, actually historically what the reason this was, is because the thingy was not there all the time. The mu'adhin was not there. And the mu'adhin is ahaqqu bil iqamah. And so he is normally at the back giving the from the minara or place. So it would be an indication that, right, establish the prayer yallah, or establish the prayer yallah. So if a person says that, doesn't say it, it's okay. There is actually nothing in the khutbah that must be said. That must be said from the Prophet ﷺ. We don't have a single statement that the Prophet ﷺ said there is no khutbah without X, Y, or Z.
You know when you're in translation to an ayah, should you be careful to not go front of seer and waste time?
That depends upon what the objective is, isn't it? Right? If your objective of the khutbah is to give a tafsir, I say tafsir, but explanation of the ayah in 5-10 minutes, the whole khutbah is about this ayah, then that obviously is the case. But if you're going to be speaking about 4 or 5 ayat, then of course you don't have time to be giving tafsir. You just give the translation. And these matters are flexible, but the key is to not go too much freestyle. The key is to not move away into free talk, reminder, conference style, that kind of scene. Yeah. You mean in first, second khutbah?
Yeah.
Right.
Now switch towards half an hour of Arabic and have like an interpreter connected to an application on the phone, you listen in.
Yeah.
You mix that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, first of all, the problem is half an hour of Arabic, which is death in itself. Yeah. But I guess it's permissible, it's illegal khutbah. Is it allowed for a person to listen into a translation if they do not understand the thingy? I have to say that fi qalbi shay, as they say. I'm okay with it if there are people who don't understand the Arabic at all. But I don't know how much benefit they achieve from listening to a translation either. Because the khutbah is an admonition from the heart to the heart, right? That's what it's got to be. That's the reason why we don't tell people to read it out. And a translation can never be that. It's a stop-start kind of, interpretation, whatever. So I'm not a massive fan of it. But I can't say it's haram. Because we are the people who are trying to say that the only pillar of the khutbah is the reminder. And if they can't get the reminder because the language is something they don't speak, then what other option do they have? But it is a risky move. It's a risky move that I wouldn't, for example, introduce into a masjid. Someone, a big scholar has making that call, let it be upon his neck. Yeah.
In terms of content of the khutbah, which style would you say is more effective? The one whereby the entire khutbah is dedicated to, let's say, 1 or 2 verses and going through the tafsir of that and going through the meaning of that, or one whereby there's one kind of objective and then there's lots of hadith.
Yeah, so that's actually really difficult to answer, okay? Because that's going to come down to style and approach and the order of the day and what it is that you want to actually bring about. I can certainly tell you what the safest is. And the safest is to build it around a few ayat, okay? To build it around a few ayat that talk about a few concepts, that allow it to be a holistic message and not too specific. So you shouldn't be, for example, just choosing a verse just on women, for example, or divorce, for example, or, as I said, social commentary. There are people who want to talk about relationships and love and about, how to show children how to memorize Quran, or I don't know, specific subjects. That's not what the khutbah is for, right? The khutbah is to remind people of their responsibility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first and foremost. Everything else is secondary. Obviously, the quoting of hadith is necessary in order to give a correct understanding of an ayah sometimes. So that's a good thing. We don't say that that's not something to be done. What's more important is to make sure it's accurate, to make sure it's authentic. You know, the idea that the majority of Khateebs, they're using weak hadith, it comes from that initial point that I made. People are forgetting the 5 principles of normal talks, where they're all trying to be different, trying to be flash, trying to bring something new, trying to excite the people. So they'll go with the weird and wonderful instead of sticking to what is absolutely clear. And I'll tell you something, the better, more sincere, and the more stronger, and the more prepared people will make the same old material as fresh as a daisy. As fresh as a daisy. And especially if they are being sincere and speaking to the people. So some of you might be thinking, goodness man, this is like, this is not how he normally speaks, like I speak, and how could you keep yourself so restricted and so boring, and I'm not saying that. So if I was doing this today, I'll say, everybody, I would actually start. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Everybody, I'm about to give you a reminder on some verses and you can speak to and have a conversation with the people. I think these verses that you will see, and I want you to concentrate especially upon the second word right now as I say it, and have a conversation with the people and to make them get engaged. You will know, and again, I don't want to move into public speaking because that's a big area and everybody has their own skill level and that takes ages to perfect. You will see, once you start to speak, in your normal direct voice, people will start listening. When you are on a diatribe, not ranting, but you are on a theme and going, you start to see the people fidget and their eyes glaze over and their attention go else. But once you come out of that diatribe and you start to actually look and speak to the people, they'll have your attention. So don't think that the content itself is boring. It's the way that it's presented that is boring. Yeah? Yeah.
There's 2 questions. One about the surah which the brother asked, Al-Ayat Nashi. Is it also authentic that it's Jum'ah al-Munafiqun?
Yes. That is the minority of the time. So it's something which should be done once in a while.
And the second question is, I 100%, 1,000% agree with you that there's no topic. It's basically the same recurring theme again and again and again.
No, that's not correct.
As in, the purpose is not to educate on a certain topic, rather it's to remind people whether a topic is a means to or not, is something else.
Yeah, I have to say that it's not easy to articulate, okay? How do you articulate the fact that the Prophet ﷺ called the people to jihad and told them to afterwards get ready because we're going to collect donations and so on, a clear and present danger in which the Prophet ﷺ actually was preparing an army, and then other times in which he absolutely wasn't and only speaking about Allah, only he spoke about Allah, and the companion said that he spoke with his arms and with his hands and in a manner as if he was preparing an army. So both times he's preparing an army, one time he's not, another time that he actually physically is. Which shows that it's that the content can be about the akhirah, the content can be about Allah being relevant in one's life and remembering His magnificence so that people turn to Him, at the same time remembering their specific obligations. So it's acceptable to speak about the coronavirus in a khutbah. But the coronavirus part should be the minimal part, and the key aspect should be Allah and His Messenger's response to that. Their statements and so on. You will hear 2 different khutbahs. Again, this is very different from a reminder about the coronavirus or something else, but in a khutbah I'm talking about, you will see 2 different khutbahs approach the coronavirus. One is a complete disaster and one's great. And people can see that. Okay? So when fasting is coming around, to remind the people of fasting, okay? But the focus would not be so much on the fiqh as it would be the objectives, and you would just focus on the fundamentals of the fiqh or the big issues. But it would be, the point I'm trying to bring across is that if you understand the overarching theme, that it's always about Allah, life, reflection, temporality, and akhirah, then when you're giving the khutbah on fasting, your theme will dominate the way you present that subject.
Yes.
The idea will be to make sure people realize that sacrifice is part of this life, that fasting is not as easy as people make it out to be, that the ones that are telling us, making plans and for trying to make it as easy as possible and, sharing tips about how to, give up tea and whatever, are missing the point entirely. And yes, that the rules are this, but. So it's a direction, more than the same subject.
So So for the vast majority of Khateebs or khutbas, which the Khateeb unfortunately is in the mindset of, oh, I've got a topic, what should I pick? Like X, Y, Z, Corona, whatever it is. How would you go about advising them once they just need to link it to that higher purpose and understand that there's a purpose to the khutbah, not what they think, because they've been exposed to such a khutbah for so many
Yeah, I think I think the advice there is actually linked to knowledge. So, for example, the difference between different people speaking on coronavirus is clear based upon their knowledge. So I'm saying that the ones who have more knowledge of this religion can see obvious links and obvious lessons that are linked to that subject. I don't know of any other, it's just the way the people's minds work, to understand the concept of trial, of ibtila, of the concept of shahada, of the concept of sihha. So there are fundamental topics within the issue of a virus infection that are religious concepts, such as purification, such as maslaha, such as the qawaid fiqhiyya like la darar wa la dirar and so on, that immediately jump out when you got a topic. So you got, and that comes with experience. That just comes with experience and time and study and reading. But again, it goes back down to it. If people are just going to think that I can just go up and blag it something on coronavirus and talk about 2 hadith, you deserve exactly what you get. Whereas a person who prepares and spends a couple of days revising and memorizing, then it'll be you've done enough service. You've done your service. Yeah.
So I was going to ask, with regard to giving feedback to Khateeb, so in previous someone said that it's for the Khateeb to decide what the congregation needs to do and the congregation to accept it, basically.
That's true. It is true that it is up to the Khateeb to make that decision and so on, but that's because the Khateeb is the Imam. Alright? And that's what goes back to the point before, that the Khateebs are the Imams, they're our leaders, we love them, we respect them, and so on and so forth. And the reason we do is because we have complete confidence in in how they execute it, what they do it. You get what I'm trying to say? So theoretically, 100% correct. But you look at the Khateebs today, alright?
Should we wait until there is the minimum amount of musallin for a Jum'ah before we start the khutbah?
Yeah, I think that it's not acceptable to start a Jum'ah khutbah without it being a Jum'ah gathering. And in my opinion, 3 is enough.
3 musallin, or is that
3 including the Khateeb. Yeah, but there are different positions on that. But of course, this is not just about you. You should be in conjunction with the masjid and the people to make a plan. It's not just a case of, right, I'm starting regardless. It's of, right, are we going to try and make a change here? Are we going to do this over a couple of weeks where we try to educate people that, listen, we've been saying this all month. We're starting this time and finishing this time. You've got to give them a heads up, not just,
Sitting down.
Yeah. Narrated? Yeah. It's narrated from the Prophet ﷺ that he actually sat down briefly. That's all it said. Oh, no, just briefly. So that's urf. The reason that the scholars don't let it be long is because just the general feeling of the entire event was one which flowed. So it doesn't make any sense that the Prophet ﷺ would sit down for any long period of time. It just doesn't make any sense. Make istighfar? No. If he does, it's fine. If he doesn't, it's fine. The same principle as I said before. It's a silent period. It's a period of reflection, rest, momentary, gathering thoughts. And you're allowed to speak. You're allowed to drink. You're allowed to do whatever you want at that time. You're not in an act of ibadah at that moment. And as I said, if the person makes istighfar and dhikr at his downtime, it's better than doing anything else, right? So it's the general principle of empty time that takes over that gap. That which is why it's allowed to make istighfar or not istighfar or do what you want. The point is, the reason why you always hear people making istighfar, crowd and imam, because you're not going to get a better moment to do it. Everyone's thinking the same, everyone's feeling very close to Allah. It is a very kind of sacred time, sacred place, which is why people do it. So people go along with the flow and use it. Use the power of the moment, yeah. Unless there's a reason, that's not allowed, no. If a person feels that there's going to be a real problem, then but Otherwise it shouldn't be done. Khilaf sunnah. Yeah.
Just a two-part question. At university level, do you recommend sort of selecting students, putting them through training, and then give them a platform within the university parameters? And if so, what is the best way?
As opposed to what? As opposed to what?
External. Yeah, like starting off sort of locally within the university sort of platform like here, like, well, then if so, how do you go about doing that to ensure it's sustainable?
No, I'm just asking that you said, do you suggest that as opposed to what? What would the alternative be?
Currently, we have like external routes and like,
Oh, you mean basically own the process entirely yourselves?
But maybe have some sort of input from students.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that's something which is, there's no problem with that. That's not an Islamic issue, is it? That's more just a planning.
And is there a particular way that you recommend us we go about it?
Not necessarily, no. I think what you said makes sense. You know, you've always got access to past students. You got, people in the community that do it all the time. Ask them to come down and vet some of these people, what they say, and so on. But I don't have any experience in that. I don't have a religious input into that because it's not something that used to happen. We don't have any evidence of people practicing or people being vetted. It's not exactly the easiest of procedures to pull off. But there's certainly nothing wrong with that, especially if if we want to make sure that, yeah.
you mentioned that the khutbah should be different from the conference speech.
Yeah.
Do you have any examples that you watched of people who do that?
Who give a good khutbah?
Yeah. It's like hard to get my head around like the difference between conference speech and class.
Really? Because that second question is far easier to answer than the first one. Because you said the first one, because what you're saying to me is like, give me a good example of a khutbah, yeah? And that's, that's the mission, I don't know about that. The second part is easy, what you just said, which is you're trying to get your head around the difference between a conference speech, whatever. Look at any of my conference speeches, you'll know exactly that's how a khutbah shouldn't be. You get what I'm saying? All this shouting, all this laughing, joking. That is how a khutbah should not be. That's the easy part. As for give me a good khutbah that you could listen to and it'd be you think that's great. I don't know. Can anyone seen a recorded one of something? Yasir Qadi. Yasir Qadi. Yeah, Yasir Qadi has obviously many. He brings his professionalism to the khutbah, right? That's the difference between his. So in his lectures, he will go out there on a more wide. I have to say I haven't seen much of Yasir's khutbahs. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure about this, but I'm pretty sure that he won't go on major tangents and he won't go into. He'll quote a lot more Quran and he will. Not have jokes. So that's the right thing, and he'll bring all of his things that he's known for, which is to be succinct, to be professional, to be on time, etc. The thing that the problem is that he becomes too subject specific and might not be as part of. But I don't know. I can't be a fair judge of that because I know that Yasir will be the kind of person that would be aware that he has to separate between the two. But then the temptation could be a lot that I want to present a subject to people. Right? But I get the feeling that he probably has got that discipline not to do that. No, so I can't give an example. Abab the Salam? Oh, Salam one. Yes, I'm thinking about that. So I'm just trying to think whether I saw that as a good khutbah or whether I saw that as a great reminder. Yeah, and what I mean by that is that there's a difference between a reminder on salam, which is what I remember from the khutbah, versus me feeling closer to Allah per se. You get what I'm trying to say? So this is not easy. I'm don't get me wrong, okay? And if I remember correctly, it was a lot of clever connection of salam throughout the verses and so on. Yeah. Oh no, I don't remember. Okay, I'm not sure. I do remember being in one khutbah and it was about salam and him salam and all this kind of clever kind of poems about salam and whatever. I just remember it being a good reminder on salam. So what I mean is that could be fine, but with the primary message for people to go away not knowing about salam, but knowing about why it's important to send salam, or why we need salam with respect to the akhirah and so on. Which he might have said, by the way, which makes it the perfect khutbah, yeah.
Sheikh, could you give a khutbah next week?
No, couldn't. No.
I think some of the lectures from lectures of Sheikh Khateeb, it's like a very powerful reminder of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about knowing Allah, and the majority of the lectures are more about connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reminds. That is the kind of the these kind of translated reminders. That's a good example, actually. The translated ones that people put all that kind of scenery and all that behavior to it, and they have the subtitles underneath. That is actually more khutbah material. That's what one is meant to hear on a weekly basis. It's meant to. They're very simple, actually. If you make it some, in deep analysis, you'll find very little. It's just allowing the words of Allah to just speak. That's the perfect example, actually. After listening to that, it's like, should I write about this? SubhanAllah.
Yeah.
What about?
Yeah, I just think literally, genuinely, we've got to keep things more simple, allow it to speak for itself. Yeah.
Is there like a litmus test for ourselves to know that we're in a stage that's sufficient?
Yeah, so this is what Aziz is saying, isn't he? He's saying, how do we prepare, do we train them ourselves and get a panel? And I don't think there's a right or wrong to this, yeah? We can be too much like me and basically make you feel that I can never stand on the minbar ever again, or which is completely self-defeating. Or you've got those other people who just think that because they've been giving khutbah for 20 years, that they think that they can give khutbah. In actual fact, they've been torturing the masses for 20 years. And people are just, just too useless to tell them or to get them changed or whatever. Failed. So, either way, there's no right or wrong way. I don't think that we should stop people having a go. I think that as long as, what I've just said, if people remember what I've just said and they prepare, I have no problem anyone going out and being their first person, second person on the mass is not a problem. Because you can't get this wrong. Because after what you've just heard today and what the focus should be, and it's going to be short and it's going to be whatever, I'm not going to lie, okay? I can't remember the content of a single Goka khutbah, yeah? But I just know it's great. Goka, when he gives khutbah, it's just a breath of fresh air. This is it. And I do seem to remember that he does do ayat. You do read ayat, don't you? Yeah, he does. It's just that everybody's happy. We're all flipping so happy. We walk in, we're praising him, and then when we come back out, we're all making dua for him. You know what I mean? The bar is not that high, believe me. Okay? You just got to stick to the key principles, and that's it. People can be, you can allow yourself to become too sensitive to other people's, whatever. There's always a balance. We don't want to become so arrogant because they know that I'm going to get hated upon, so I'm going to ignore it. Right? That's too extreme. And then the other side is that, I'm definitely not worthy enough. There's so many better people out there, blah, blah, blah. There's my teacher in the crowd. There's my sheikh in the crowd, whatever. This is nonsense, but you've got to block all that out. When you're there, you've got to get it done. No time for modesty or there's no tayammum in the presence of water, baqwas, whatever, whatnot. People like, Rehan and Abid, yani love saying, yeah. Yeah.
Two questions. First one, you said the ideal one is 12 to 10 minutes. Yeah,
let me just make it clear that there is no evidence of minutes in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. He said it's from the fiqh of a man that he shortens the khutbah and elongates the prayer. If the sunnah is al-a'la wal-ghashiyah, this takes 10 minutes. If this is the long, then what should the short be? So it's because I know that everyone would ignore everything I say if I say the khutbah should be 5 minutes. Okay, but people will just say forget that, then Abu Eesa came and he just wasted our time for 2 hours. So I just want to say it should be 10, 12, 15 minutes, 9 minutes, in this area.
Say when you
Yeah. So qaf, for example, it will take تقريبا 10 minutes to recite. صح؟ تقريبا. يعني one of the riwayat says that he stopped at every ayah. He briefly stopped at every ayah. So if you do stop at every ayah, this means that he was not يعني reciting hadran يعني. Okay? So تقريبا 10 minutes ish. But a person does 15, it's not haram, or 20 minutes, it's not haram. But the point is that it is from the fiqh and the appreciation of everybody else. The person keeps it tight.
Next question is, sometimes the Khateeb wants to lead the prayer.
Yes. So, one of the permissions to allow another person to lead the prayer is if the Khateeb, his recitation does not fulfill the requirements of qira'ah. Tajweed is not a requirement of qira'ah. Tajweed is not a requirement of qira'ah batta. Okay? But ahkam al-makharij kada has obligation, of course. We have to hear the words properly. So if a person can't recite at all, which indicates, by the way, that it's permissible for a Khateeb who is not learned to give the khutbah, as long as he gives the khutbah on the right things, right? And he inspires confidence. It's a shame that he can't lead the prayer, but it's not the end of the world. Then in this scenario, someone else should lead the prayer. But it will be very rare for a person that cannot lead the prayer because he can't recite the words. You know what I mean? We mustn't make tajweed more important than it is. Tajweed isn't that important. Tajweed is improving the experience. It's not a legal position. Yeah? Allah.
So I think Malik already asked this question, but just to clarify, with regards to sort of the Marshia, are you allowed to read this, for example, read the Khateeb every Friday, or should this be
Yes, I think it's allowed to recite it every Friday, but it's not allowed to say this must be recited every Friday.
Is it better to leave it like to a few Fridays?
Absolutely. It's important to educate the masses. It's important to, for example, the Khateeb's got some verses that they're comfortable with to recite to them, especially if he gives a short khutbah, and he's got a little bit longer now for recitation, to then recite to the masses, make them feel comfortable. It's important to revive the sunnah of Jum'ah and Munafiqeen as well, here and there. But most of the time, a'la ghashiyah.
Is this in the prayer or not?
This is in the prayer. This is after the khutbah is finished. This is the salah itself. Alright folks, Jazakumullah khair. Thanks for coming out.